Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we are reading Canto 10, Chapter 40, Text 19 and also Text 20. And I see Text 20 is on the board, although the first one is 19. It is the one with the purport. So I may have a little struggle with the word for word because I did the word for 19. So bear with me when we come to the word for word because the light's not very good. So chanting text, well, I'll read text 19 and then proceed to text 20. Namasto Dibute Simhaya Sadhuloka Baya Paha Vamanaya Mamaslubhyam Tubhyam Kansa Tribhuvanaya Cha. And the translation for text 19. Obeisances to you, the amazing lion, Lord Nrsimha, who removes your saintly devotee's fear, and to the dwarf Vamana, who stepped over the three worlds. And then text 20, which you can chant responsively, which is on the board. Nama Brigunam Putaye Tripta Kshatravana Echide Namo Te Raghu Vanayayam Ravanatsa Karayacha Namo Brigunam Putaye Tripta Kshatravana Echide Namaste Raghu Varyaya Ravanatsa Karayacha Nama Brigunam Putaye Tripta Kshatravana Echide Namaste Raghu Varyaya Ravanatsa Karayacha. Please chant. Namo Brigunam Patsaye Tripta Kshatravana Echide Namaste Raghuvaryaya Ravana Karayacha Namo Brigunam Patsaye Briguvatravana Echide Namaste Namaste Raghuvaryaya Ravanatsa Karayacha Namo Brigunam Patsaye Tripta Kshatravana Echide Namaste Raghuvaryaya Ravanatsa Karayacha Namo Brigunam Patsaye Tripta Kshatravana Echide Namaste Raghuvaryaya Ravanatsa Karayacha Namah Brigunam Putaye Dripta Shatravana Echide. Namaste Raghuvaryaya. Ravanantakaraya cha. Say the word for word. Namaha, obeisances. Brigunam, of the descendants of Brigu. Pataye, to the chief, Lord Parshuram. Dripta, conceived. Shatra, of the members of the royal order. Vana, the forest. Chide, who cut down. Namaha, obeisances to you. Raghuvaryaya, the best of the descendants of Raghu. Namaya, Ravana, of Ravana. Antakarya, who put an end, cha, and the translation for text 20. Obeisances to you, Lord of the Brigus, who cut down the forest of the conceited royal order, and to Lord Ram, the best of the Raghu dynasty, who put an end to the demon Ravana. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshurin Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dati Svapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamlam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Padaswami Iti Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. In text 16, so going back 3 texts, Akura has stated, these were his words, to enjoy your pastimes, you manifest yourself in various forms in this material world, and these incarnations cleanse away all the unhappiness of those who joyfully chant your glories. And according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Sarata Darshini, his commentary on text 16 that I've just read, Krishna had asked Akura, but then, which are my original forms? And in text 16, Akura answers that question by saying that Krishna manifests himself in various forms in this material world, and these incarnations cleanse away all the unhappiness of those who joyfully chant their glories. Um, so actually from text 17 through 22, Akura is actually anticipating the question, Krishna asking this question. What are these forms? I mean, that's natural. If one makes a statement, the person who's hearing one will inquire further. So Akura is anticipating that question from Krishna, what are these forms? And hence the description of those forms in these verses, these 6 verses. And today we're going to do an examination of these prayers of Akura in 2 of these 6 verses, the second and the third of the 6 verses. So the first, or the second of the 6 verses, but the first one we're looking at, text 19, he's saying, so it's a prayer, obeisances to you, the amazing Lion, Lord Nrsimha, who removes your saintly devotees' fear, and to the dwarf Vamana, who stepped over the 3 worlds. So, looking at it, indeed, that amazing form is described, meaning the one of Lord Nrsimha, together with the reason for his appearance. So this is coming in Srimad Bhagavatam in the 7th canto, in the 8th chapter. So here's the description of Lord Nrsimha. To prove that the statement of his servant Prahlad Maharaj was substantial, in other words, to prove that the Supreme Lord is present everywhere, even within the pillar of an assembly hall, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, exhibited a wonderful form never before seen. The form was neither that of a man nor that of a lion. So that's the description. Because Akura is describing that it's an amazing lion form. So this is the earlier description given in that section of the Bhagavatam of the appearance of Lord Nrsimhadev. Now there's a further description of the Lord's form. So Akura has described it as amazing. So I actually find this description coming up quite extraordinary. So this is also from the Bhagavatam in the 7th canto. The Lord's form was extremely fearsome because of his angry eyes, which resembled molten gold, his shining mane, which expanded the dimensions of his fearful face, his deadly teeth, and his razor-sharp tongue, which moved about like a dueling sword. His ears were erect and motionless, and his nostrils and gaping mouth appeared like the caves of a mountain. His jaws parted fearfully, and his entire body touched the sky. His neck was very short and thick, his chest broad, his waist thin, and the hairs on his body as white as the rays of the moon. His arms, which resembled flanks of soldiers, spread in all directions as he killed the demons, rogues, and atheists with his conch, shell, disc, club, lotus, and other natural weapons. So that's the description, the amazing Lord Nrsimha. Now, Srila Prabhupada explains that when Hiranyakashipu asked Prahlad Maharaj, where is your Lord? Is he present in this pillar? So it would be like somebody being quite rude and disdainful. So that's the mood of King Hiranyakashipu. And Prahlad's reply is, yes, the Lord is present everywhere. It's a very simple response. And therefore, to convince Hiranyakashipu that the statement of Prahlad Maharaj was unmistakably true, the Lord appeared from the pillar. And the Lord appeared as half man, half lion. So Akura says that amazing lion. It's half man, half lion. So that Hiranyakashipu himself couldn't understand whether the great giant was that of a human or that of a lion. So to remove the fear of the saintly devotees, and that's what Akura has stated, because in such a short phrase, he's describing this entire appearance of Lord Nrsimhadev. And he adds, to remove the fear of his saintly devotees. So that Lord Nrsimhadev is doing this, removing the fear of his saintly devotees, lies in the fact that the Lord is substantiating the statement of one of his saintly devotees, Prahlad Maharaj, that his devotees basically never vanquished. And he substantiates this statement through his action of capturing Hiranyakashipu. We heard that the arms were so huge that it's like flanks of soldiers. He was just wiping out all the atheists and rogues. But this action of actually capturing this specific individual, Hiranyakashipu, has him substantiating a particular statement, and I'm going to come to that statement in a minute, because I'm first going to describe how it is that he captures Hiranyakashipu. So here's the description. As Hiranyakashipu moved his limbs here and there, and all around, very much afflicted at being captured, Lord Nrsimhadev placed the demon on his lap, supporting him with his thighs. And in the doorway of the assembly hall, the Lord very easily tore the demon to pieces with the nails of his hand. So that's in the same canto, 7th canto, 8th chapter. So this statement that the Lord substantiates by this very action of tearing Hiranyakashipu apart with his nails, is one that he protects his devotees by this very action that he's done to a very specific individual, the father of one of his saintly devotees. So this is the statement that Lord Nrsimhadev is basically substantiating. It's Krishna's statement from Bhagavad Gita, the 9th chapter, 31st verse, where he says, he quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace, O son of Kunti. Declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. So this is expanding on Akura's statement that Lord Nrsimhadev vanquishes the fear that's there in his saintly devotees, or all fear. So that particular verse reads, Shipam Bhavati Dharmatma Sasvat Shantim Rugachati Konter Pratijanini Name Bhakta Pranasyati. So this incarnation of the Lord as Lord Nrsimhadev did drive away the unhappiness of those chanting his glories, which is Akura's statement. There's a following statement in Srimad Bhagavatam in the 7th canto in the 8th chapter again. Hiranyakashipu had been exactly like a fever of meningitis in the head of the three worlds. I'm just going to pause here a minute. This simile made of the pain caused by Hiranyakashipu. If you've ever suffered a migraine, you'll know exactly how debilitating it is to have pain in the head. And here the description is of Hiranyakashipu being exactly like meningitis in the head of the three worlds. I find it very graphic. So, thus, When the wives of the demigods in the heavenly planets saw that the great demon had been killed by the personal hand of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, their faces blossomed in great joy. The wives of the demigods again and again showered flowers from heaven upon Lord Nrsimhadev like rain. So, just a very graphic description, which points to this elimination of the great unhappiness that was there through the presence of Hiranyakashipu and his particular ability to just wipe away that unhappiness in those that were chanting his glories. And here was just a brief description of the wives of the demigods doing just that. Now, the next incarnation that Akura lists in text 19 is that of Lord Vamana. And the distinguishing characteristic of Lord Vamanadev is of stepping over the three worlds. So I'm going to proceed with the description to elaborate on, just these few words of Akura. And this is coming from the 8th canto in the 20th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. The unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead, who had assumed the form of Vamana, then began increasing in size, acting in terms of the material energy. Until everything in the universe was within his body, including the earth, the planetary systems, the sky, the directions, the various holes in the universe, the seas, the oceans, the birds, the beasts, human beings, the demigods, and the great saintly persons. So the reason the Lord expanded his body in such a way was to show Bali Maharaj, who wanted to give charity to Vamanadev, because Vamanadev came in the form of a Brahmana, that everything in the universe is directly already in his body. So that's the reason for the expansion of his body. And to verbalize, one can say that to generalize, my computer changed something, to generalize, one can say that nobody can give anything to the Supreme Lord, because he's already full in all things, means that you can't really augment his luxuriance or his abundance. So, going further, because Akura states that the unhappiness is cleansed by the Lord appearing in his various incarnations. So the cleansing of unhappiness lies in the fact that the original source of everything, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original source of all beings, when decorated, allows for the devotee and all living entities to be decorated automatically. And in terms of Vamanadev, the following is a description of his form and his decorations. So here's that description. These associates, referring to the Lord's conch shell, they called his associates, his conch shell, his club, his sword, and shield, decorated with hundreds of moon-like spots, and other chief associates, and accompanied by all the predominating deities of the various planets, offering praise to the Lord, who wore a brilliant helmet, bracelets, and glittering earrings that resembled fish. On the Lord's bosom was the lock of hair called Srivatsa and the transcendental jewel called Kaustuba. He wore a yellow garment covered by a belt, and he was decorated by a flower garland surrounded by bees. Manifesting himself in this way, O King, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose activities are wonderful, covered the entire surface of the earth with one footstep. The sky with his body, and all directions with his arms. As the Lord took his second step, he covered the heavenly planets. And Not even a spot remained for the third step. For the Lord's foot extended higher and higher beyond Mahaloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and even Satyaloka. So that's the description of the beautiful decorations of Vamanadev expanding into this huge form. Now, this pastime of Bali Maharaj taking pleasure in that, he took pleasure in the understanding that the Lord will cheat his devotee in order to glorify the position of his devotee. So that was the that great happiness that results. So in Bali Maharaj, it took the form of this very subtle understanding. Bali Maharaj understood that Vamanadev had taken the side of the demigods and had come before him as a Brahmana beggar. So the Lord had told Bali Maharaj, being falsely proud of your possessions, you promised to give me land, but you could not fulfill your promise. Therefore, because your promise was false, you must live for a few years in hellish life. So Bali Maharaj is understanding he's been cheated because he knows in the first place that Vamanadev is coming, already been on the side of the demigods, and he's also appearing in the form of a Brahmana who's begging charity. And then the next second, he's expanded his body into a gigantic form that covers the whole three worlds. So, and then he proceeds to say to Bali Maharaj, actually, you promised to give me whatever I asked for, but actually your promise was false because you're not actually able to give me 3 steps of land. So Bali Maharaj is understanding he's been cheated. But there's the great happiness because he's given consideration to how he's going to respond. And he says, "Oh, best personality of Godhead, most worshipable for all the demigods, if you think that my promise has become false, I shall certainly rectify matters to make it truthful. I cannot allow my promise to be false. Please, therefore, place your 3rd lotus footstep on my head." So the very last possession that he had was his body, so to speak, so he's offering even that to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he's understanding that that action on his part is, in general, something that would allow for the devotee's position to be glorified because he took such a completely humble position. He actually was prepared to be cheated, prepared to be humiliated, and to offer every single thing that he had, including his very form, that the Lord could place his head on, his lotus foot on his head. The 3rd step being that. Akura's next prayer in text 20 has him listing Lord of the Brigu's incarnation. So he says, "Obeisances unto you, Lord of the Brigu's, who cut down the forest of the conceited royal order, and to Lord Ram, the best of the Raghu dynasty, who put an end to the demon Ravana." So again, this incarnation, Lord Brigu, is Lord Parashuram, and the description is given of this incarnation. Lord Parashuram then went to, my computer's changed, sorry, the particular place where he went, which was already doomed by the sinful killing of a Brahmana. In the midst of that city sorry, which I don't have right because my computer's altered it and I can see it's not right. In the midst of that city, he made a mountain of heads, severed from the bodies of the sons of Kartavir Arjuna. So the reason he's done that is that these sons of Kartavir Arjuna had killed Jamadagni, who had been sitting ready to perform a sacrifice, and he had been meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And at that moment, his head was forcibly severed from his body by the sons of Kartavir Arjuna. So this particular pastime of the Lord, for his enjoyment, took this form. And it's very interesting because the Supreme Personality of Godhead enjoys in very unusual ways. So here's this particular enjoyment, because that's the statement of Akura early on, that the incarnations and the pastimes are there for the enjoyment of the Lord. So here's the form that this enjoyment takes. With the blood of the bodies of those sons of Kartavir Arjuna, he created a ghastly river which brought great fear to the kings, who had no respect for Brahminical culture. So it's so extreme, but this is the enjoyment of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The reason is given for this incarnation. And here's the reason. Because the Kshatriyas, the men of power in government, were performing sinful activities, Lord Parshuram, on the plea of retaliating for the murder of his father, cut all the Kshatriyas from the face of the earth 21 times, or rid all the Kshatriyas from the face of the earth 21 times. So this is that statement made by Akura earlier on in this verse that we were reading. This is the cutting down of the forest of the conceited royal order. So this was the incarnation of Lord Parshuram and the purpose for his incarnating in that form, and something of the way he derived his enjoyments through creating this ghastly river to set fear into the heart of those who were not respecting Brahminical culture, the very same Kshatriyas whom he came to cut down. So in this incarnation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very clearly functioning in his eternal mission, the Paritranaya Sadhunam, Vinashaya Chaduskritam, Dharma Stapanartaya, Sambhavami Yuge Yuge. So he's functioning in that particular mission of protecting the devotees and annihilating the miscreants. So it's interesting because one can consider, how did he cleanse the unhappiness of those chanting his glories? And this took an interesting form because he took his father's head, Jamadagni, and he put it back together with the dead body. And he placed that entire body, so the attached head and the body, upon some kusha grass, and he began to offer sacrifice. So he worshipped Vasudev, the all-pervading supersoul of all the demigods and of every living entity. And after completing the sacrifice, Lord Parshuram gave the eastern direction, and this is Lord Parshuram on a grand scale, giving charity to the Brahmanas. So exactly what was the fault that was there initially, he took care of it in this way. So this is the description. After completing the sacrifice, Lord Parshuram gave the eastern direction as a gift to the Hoti, the south to the Brahmas, the west to the Advaryu, the north to the Udgata, and the four corners, northeast, southeast, northwest, and southwest, to the other priests. He gave the middle to Kashyapa and the place known as Ayurvata to the Upadrishtas. So whatever remained, he distributed among the sannyasis or the associated priests. So he performed the very act that, on a grand scale, put things in order. Eliminated those not respecting Brahminical culture and then performing a sacrifice himself and distributing land as charity to classes of brahmanas or priests. So the final incarnation, Akura lists, is that of Lord Ramachandra. And he refers to him as the best of the Raghu dynasty, who brought an end to the demon Ravana. So there's a way in which Lord Ram addressed Ravana, which is very interesting. He says, "You are the most abominable of the man-eaters. Indeed, you are like their stool. You resemble a dog, for as a dog steals eatables from the kitchen in the absence of the householder, in my absence, you kidnapped my wife Sita Devi. Therefore, as Yamaraj punishes sinful men, I shall also punish you. You are most abominable, sinful, and shameless. Today, therefore, I, whose attempt never fails, shall punish you." So after rebuking Ravana, Lord Ram fixed an arrow to his bow, aimed it at Ravana, and released the arrow, which pierced Ravana's heart. And it says, like a thunderbolt. It was so forceful. So that's, of course, from the 10th canto and the 22nd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Lord Ramachandra's cleansing of the unhappiness of those chanting his glories is recounted in this way. When Lord Ramachandra came before her, this is Sita Devi, so that's the first person whose great unhappiness he cleansed. When Lord Ramachandra came before her, she was exceedingly happy to see her beloved, and her lotus-like mouth showed her joy. So this is Sita in a very emaciated condition, finally seeing Lord Ramachandra coming before her. And in addition, this further cleansing of the unhappiness of those who sing the glories of Lord Ramachandra. When Lord Ramachandra returned to his capital, Ayodhya, he was greeted on the road by the princely order, who showered his body with beautiful fragrant flowers, while great personalities like Lord Brahma and other demigods glorified the activities of the Lord in great jubilation. So, I know it was a lot of reading, but I can't possibly express it as beautifully as the Srimad Bhagavatam, the description of these incarnations that Akura is describing in the 2 verses of today. So I've tried to follow his particular synopsis of the incarnations, and hence I've drawn on the descriptions of the incarnations and their particular way of either enjoying or thereafter clearing the unhappiness of those who are worshipping the particular incarnation. So if there's anything that comes to mind from these this recount and small analysis, please feel free to contribute.
Yes, thank you. As always, nice class.
Oh, so thank you for your kind attention through all the reading, but it's just very extraordinary.
I was just wondering, the incarnation of Lord Parshuram is always very, in one sense, well, not mysterious, but well, is sort of not extremely easy to understand in one sense, because it's so extreme. These are 21 generations of Kshatriya, so he just went into a like intense elimination of so many generations of kings, and like to go to that extreme and not seeing, corrections. Maybe after one generation eliminate all, and then the descendants of that, you eliminate that. I guess the further descendants that will get the message, but the thing goes extending all to 21. And also the idea that maybe they were, they were some sort of discrimination in one sense, but it doesn't seem in the narration there was not much discrimination. It's like, you're a Kshatriya, you're finished. So that type of intensity of the Lord being expressed in this way, and on the top of that, creating joy. I mean, you find in the narrations of the other appearance of the Lord, the Lila avatars, that you get a lot of, joy of the Lord, killing these terrible demons. But this one in Parshuram, the description is so, I mean, it's not only the rivers of blood, it's that the mountains of limbs and bodies and all, it's very gory, the whole thing, like terribly gory. So maybe you can comment on that. How is that? How it's not? This one is a little, you want to accept it and glorify it, but it's a little, extreme.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess what you're pointing to is what would appear to be almost excessive annihilation of miscreants, which is how Krishna puts it in his purpose for appearing. And in this particular incarnation, he saw fit to do it over 21 generations. Yeah, I suppose the extreme nature of the elimination has to do with what was at stake, Brahminical culture. So if Brahminical culture is jeopardized or, being wiped out, that does call for extreme measures, because that's the way of, with the existence of Brahminical culture, there's auspiciousness for everyone, and peacefulness and harmonious existence. So the antithesis to that is, I guess, very inauspicious, cruel, inauspicious in general, and then also the cruelty that is allowed to reign. A Kshatriya is in the position of protecting. So to actually be harming a population or creating fear and disturbance constantly, It does call for extreme measures. I mean, I haven't had direct experience, but when you grow up on the continent of Africa, you're always aware of the neighboring countries and where there are despots. So I remember as a child being always aware of the existence of Idi Amin, who was known to be a completely cruel ruler. So one would read articles. I mean, I used to read a lot, so there would be articles on how he would actually eliminate any opposition, and might be simple people, anybody that did not was not in his favor, he would throw to his pet crocodiles. So, to a child reading this, it's so. I mean, it's an example that that kind of what is the word? There's no measure to keep in check somebody who is of an atheistic mentality, that anything goes. So there's no protection whatsoever. So from that point of view, just realizing the enormity that's at stake, it seems very, in some sense, understandable that he would have repeated it 21 times to truly wipe out that demoniac, atheistic, no recount to any authority segment of the population that in actual fact has a completely different responsibility and should have a completely different motivation in their role of Kshatriyas. Yeah. Yeah. It's, the more one meditates on it, the more it seems, yes, it makes perfect sense. I mean, you even read in our Kali Yuga, where I guess people are of very small capacity and very small intelligence, but where there are very cruel rulers, there's always the fear that the son is going to be worse than the father. And indeed, often they are. Again, this is drawing from Africa. So I guess that atheistic mentality, it continues through the generations. I mean, it's the same way that it's particularly graphic in the Srimad Bhagavatam, where the particular incarnation of Prahlad Maharaj, of Lord Nrsingadev, the son is completely contrary to the father. It's a saintly personality born to a demoniac entity. So it's kind of in microscopic form, the same sort of activity of the Lord. Of course, he was also doing the activity of wiping out the rogues and the atheists, so no different, but on a microscopic scale, you're seeing that he's actually wiping out the greatest of the demons who had been so extremely cruel to his offspring, his very child. I mean, when one thinks of the role of parent, and that the parent is throwing the child into a pit of snakes, or trying to pour burning oil on a child. I mean, those are like beyond normal child abuse. I mean, what a mentality that it's possible, like completely heartless. So I guess it paints a certain picture of the kind of demoniac mentality and the form it takes when it's not properly situated in the role of protection. So I'm trying to think deeply about what you've said, just sort of from a meditative point of view. So thank you for bringing up the point of the grisly visuals that resulted from Lord Parshuram's annihilation of all these Kshatriyas and so many times, you could say that it actually brings great relief to the heart when you actually consider the terrible mentality and the suffering that results from such a mentality in the form of those that are ruling being left unchecked. So, what a glorious thing that the Supreme Personality of Godhead can step in and actually bring it to an end. Because generally, the distress in the population is huge when such a ruler is there. Yeah. I don't know if there's any other thought on this particular, or these particular prayers of Akrura.
Hare Krishna, Mother, thank you. Yeah, in South India, Andhra Pradesh, there are three, four temples, Narsimdev. So it's very nice, beautiful temples. One is on the top of the mountain, and we have to walk all the way mountain. And there's a deity with gold covered face. And in different yugas, they were offering different types of ingredients like milk, honey, and in Kali Yuga, they offer jaggery water and some spices like cardamom, like that. So very, and on the lower level bottom, that's a very ancient temple of which Pandavas had built. And another temple that's in Vijayawada. So another temple in, and when you offer, the most surprising thing, you put hand in the mouth of the Narsimdev, just you can reach to particular your hand will means half portion only, but the first and the sound coming gargling click 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 like that when you offer, and the priest take out and gives it. It seems like it's gone, like somewhere, but it's something very unique. And Vijayawada also, there's a mountain on the top of a mountain. Narsim Dev's temple is there. Not Vijayawada, Vishakhapatnam, yeah, close to Vishakhapatnam. The whole year it's covered by sandal paste. Once a year they remove it. And one more was there where I visited Simdev. Yeah, that's like. And Ahobilam, yeah, another, the top of the mountain. That's also very beautiful place. Very, it's in like inner side of the forest, like this pond with fishes, very nice. And the beautiful deity of Narsimdev is there. And on the top of the mountain where Hiranyakashipu, Narsimdev killed Hiranyakashipu, the place also there. And on the prayers, like Akrura is praying wonderful this mantras of different incarnation. In Jagannath Ashtakam, there says that when Brahmanas chant loudly the mantras, the Lord is pleased. Like especially Brahman initiated, when they sing in front of the Lord, it has very lot of impact like that. Very nice.
Thank you very much. Yes, immediately a visual came to mind of two of those deities that you've described. Well, thank you very much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.